Alex, I'll throw it back to you. What is one of your biggest takeaways or biggest observations or most intriguing thing that you saw through the first couple of days?
I'm trying to brace myself from falling in love with the receivers at this point, because you just look at them out there and the numbers and you go, okay, with a really strong offensive mind in Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan and a really talented quarterback, what can you do with these body types and these attributes? Because Kendrick Law, he really does look the part right now. Like he's put on some muscle, he's got the speed. But then you bring in a Ryan Williams to add to that. You reminded of, Caleb Odom clearly spent some summer in the weight room looking at his lower body. He does not look like a freshman. And then, an Amari Jefferson getting time in the weight room, a Bubba Hampton as well. There's a lot of pieces there, and I just like what they can do in terms of mixing and matching yards after catch. Caleb Odom in a red zone type situation, a Ryan Williams stretching the field. There's a lot to like there. You'd want more proven production. Like, again, I don't want to get swept away in this, but I like the numbers top to bottom, and I like the possibilities of the group. And again, I understand the Ryan Williams hype. I'm right there. I'm on the train, but I just want like Caleb Odom does not come along. Like he stands out. He's 6'5", like, and can run and has hands. And I just keep thinking they got to find a way to have that guy be a big piece of the offense. So I just really like what's possible there.
No, I agree. Looking at Odom, 6'5", 215 is like real. Like that is, when you hear that, like I'm obviously not the tallest human being on the planet, but then you see it. And again, they're only in shells and helmet, but like, dude, like find a way to get that dude involved in some capacity, right? Like I know a lot of our wide receiver talk has been around Ryan Williams and how they're going to use him. What's the best way to use him? What's the smartest way to use him? We gained a little bit of insight from Kalen DeBoer on Wednesday, just kind of about what their rough plan for him is. But then, yeah, you see Caleb Odom out there and it's just like, man, like you get that dude involved. Some of these other guys also look the part. You mentioned Bubba Hampton. Jeremy Bernard looks fast. Kobe Prentice looks fast. Like, no, I agree with you. Like there's just, if all you saw was like the couple of, snaps and drills that they were running through the first 15 minutes of practices that we were able to see, it's like, yo, like they got some legit dudes here. I would feel pretty good. Obviously, we know that there's a lot more that goes into it, but I agree. Like it was fun to just stand out there and be like, yeah, like they at least look the part, right? Like that's a team that would look good coming off the bus.
So what we're saying is that when we do the preseason predictions, I'm sure we will at some point in August here before the start of the season, we're going to predict that Alabama will have the following players with at least 50 catches this season: Kendrick Law, Ryan Williams, Emmanuel Henderson, Jeremy Bernard, Kobe Prentice, Caleb Odom.
Who said
Cole Adams,
catches?
Bubba Hampton.
All of them with 50 catches?
10 touchdowns each.
I
mean, look, to me, I think there's going to have to be some sort of hierarchy. Like,
oh, yeah.
You can't play like 7 or 8 guys. Like, I think you got to, especially with the quarterback and who he can work with in practice and who he can have chemistry with, like it's still got to be a relatively smaller group that really we're talking about seeing the field a lot. And so I would still narrow that down to Jeremy Bernard, probably Kendrick Law, probably Ryan Williams. And beyond that, if Caleb Odom gets a few snaps here, if Kobe Prentice gets a few snaps, if Emmanuel Henderson gets a few snaps, great. But I just don't know if we're going to see a ton of them. I think it's still, we're talking 3 receivers at the end of the day that, I mean, look at Washington last year, like 3 receivers are really what they had that really get the big playing time. And then the rest of it is you're kind of eating at the scraps a little bit.
Yeah, I think some of that, I wonder how much last year with Washington was by virtue of how good those 3 were and you didn't have to feature anybody else. The reason I just keep going back to Caleb Odom is he's that only body type they have. He's the only one who you say just when in danger, throw the ball up and you give him a chance to go get the ball. Ryan Williams obviously has that ability, but he's not 6'5". So I think you can find spots for a guy like Caleb as long as he's got a grasp of the offense and can do what he needs to do from that respect. And only time will tell with that. But no, you're absolutely right. You can't rotate 8 receivers and have chemistry either. That's just not possible. So, no, it will get winnowed down. One of those, whether it's a Cole Adams or a Caleb Odom or a Bubba Hampton, there's going to be somebody who we just hear nothing from all season. I just like that there are options there that you can get excited about, because in the past it was just like a lot of it was just meh.
And here's the thing too. A lot of that is going to depend on how much they play two tight ends. Because if you're in two tight ends with Oots because you need a blocker in the running game or you need to help your tackle with the pass rusher, then you're probably only going to have two receivers on the field. I mean, you'd have to go empty to have three receivers and two tight ends. So if you're playing a lot of two tight ends, then you're probably not playing a lot of three wide receivers. So that's going to play a role in just kind of what they're doing in the running game, how comfortable they feel with their tackles without help from a tight end. There's sort of other variables that will go into that as well.
I don't know. If Robbie Utes is playing a lot of football this year, I think the offense is in trouble. It means the line is not protecting like it needs to. The running game isn't where it needs to be. And if that's where you're at, you got a lot of problems. We're not worried about who's catching the fifth most passes at that point.
Are you calling Robbie Utes boring?
No,
you
hope you don't have to rely on too terribly much.
I want it on the record that Robbie Utes is the only returning tight end from Alabama last year that scored a touchdown. So just saying, if he's on the field, he's a threat to score. Okay? Like, throw it out there.
Yeah. I will say, like, tight end is one of the bigger mysteries to me in terms of who's going to break through and how they're used in this offense. I just have no grasp on it at this point, and I'll be completely transparent about that.
If you dig through DeBoer's history, he's got, like, at different stops, he has used tight ends differently, right? Like last 2 years at Washington, Jack Westover was the tight end, and he was more or less the fourth receiving option, did a lot in run blocking, but he was kind of that, like, safety net. Like, oh, if Rome is doubled and, Polk and McMillan aren't open, you've got Westover kind of over the middle, right? At Fresno, I'm not sure that they really used tight ends at all, but then back in Indiana, the tight end was like their number 2 receiving option. So, like, he's got different, like, I guess, playbooks, or he has experience, use it, whether he's the primary receiving option, whether he's a little bit further down, whether they don't use them at all. And what makes this even more interesting is, like, I don't know that we really saw the full-fledged CJ Dupree last year. He was more in there as a blocker. He only caught 11 balls last year. Amari Niblack was more the receiving tight end. What does his role look like? How quickly does, Josh Cuevas, the Washington transfer, how quickly does he kind of scale the tight end hierarchy? Where does that leave Robbie Utes? A lot of intrigue around that position. I know that there was a lot more last season because of Tommy Reese, but what role does DeBoer envision for those guys and how they are used, and what does the room look like? We could go down that rabbit hole if we want to.
No.
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 Mike Rodak, not a tight end guy.
Not a tight end guy.
Not a tight end guy.